Just so, yeah. I thought that we could do a practice. Can I get gallery view back? Okay, great. Then I don't have to see myself, which is ideal. Do a practice of, just spending some time to ground into this present moment, and then kind of doing a little journey through the senses, but not just being aware of the senses, but also um, looking at the senses through the lenses of wow, of wow, hearing, seeing, on and on. And so in Buddhism, we have the five senses and then the sixth sense door, which is the chitta, right? The heart mind. So does that sound great? Are you into it? Cultivating, so right here, even to start using our practice, this formal meditation practice to cultivate, awareness and also gratitude, thankfulness. Yeah. So taking some time right now to move around, wiggle yourself into your posture. Lately, I've been just taking time to find my way into the posture, not forcing it, but sort of noticing that moment when the body feels ready to find some, relative stillness. We can always move. We can always open and close our eyes anytime. Whatever feels good. How's the mic? How's the sound doing? This is crashing here, maybe. All right, let's see. Yeah. So just beginning by feeling the body and the posture of sitting. Feeling the sacred weight of the body against the seat. Simply feeling the soles of the feet against the floor. If they're on the floor, maybe you're all curled up and the feet are in a different position, but just sensing all of the places in the body that are making some kind of contact with the earth, with the seat. And sensing the hands where they're resting. And taking some time to invite in relaxation. So sensing the muscles around the eyes, the forehead, the temples, and inviting them to soften, relax. Maybe this face can have the hint of a smile. while still allowing the jaw to soften, relax, release. Letting the neck and the shoulders be heavy, relaxed. Sensing the chest, the heart, inviting in a softening here. The warmth, the melting. And sensing the belly, often in the lower part of the belly, there are these little muscles that tend to grip. And you release these muscles. And here we are. Awareness is in the body. Of course, the mind can be doing this and that. But beginning this journey through the senses, just opening up to this sense door of touch, right? We have this interoception. We can feel inside the body. We can be aware of what it feels like inside this body. How amazing that we have that capacity. And of course, we can touch the world with our skin on the outside of the body. And so bringing awareness to this movement of the breathing. And there's so much that we can know through this sense of touch, through the breath. We can know the temperature of the breath. We can sense the way the shoulders rise up, the ribs make space for breath, the belly expands, and the whole body relaxes on the out breath. And so, not just only being aware of the breath, but can we be aware of the breath through these lenses of awe? Wow, we get to breathe right now. We get to hang out with other people who are really into feeling their breathing on a Saturday night. How cool is that? And then this body that's breathing, it could also be perceived as this body that's being breathed. By what? What is breathing this body? And as you sit here, you might become aware of the pulse. Is there anywhere you can feel that rhythm of the pulse? Wow, that we have this capacity to feel our own heart beating. And then zooming out and letting the awareness be as big as the whole body. And can you sense this buzz or vibration or like a hum of aliveness, an energetic quality of aliveness that you might be able to feel somehow physically? This tingling, pulsing, breathing, warm, a cold body. And then taking a journey to the sense door of hearing. If this sense door is working for you right now, there's hearing happening. If you're here in this room together, you might hear the ticking of the clock, the traffic. At home, you have your own soundscape going on. So often we just lock in on the particulars of what we're hearing. We can also become aware that hearing is happening. Wow. Capacity to hear the world, observing this sense through the lenses of appreciation. We can so easily get lost in liking and not liking sounds and sort of forget that we get to hear the world, to make sense of the world, being able to hear the world. taking a journey to this sense door of seeing. And so, whether your eyes are open or closed, seeing is happening. So, if your eyes are closed, you might just open them. You're still meditating. And here, too, it can be so easy to get lost in what you're seeing. But can you also become aware that seeing is happening? There's seeing happening in this moment, and it's still happening when your eyes are closed. There's still visual impressions, light, if the sense door is working. How is it to have the sense of sight as the focus of your practice right now, the seeing, aware of seeing, and this can happen whether eyes are open or closed. Journeying to this sense door of smell. And if you're not sick, if the sense door is working, smelling is happening. And even if there isn't a strong smell happening in your space, this sense is ready to receive the world through the smell. Smelling is happening. And tasting. There might be some kind of residue of taste in the mouth. Wow, we get to taste this world. Part of our aliveness includes this sense of taste. And then we have the sixth sense door in Buddhism, the chitta, the heart mind, which also doesn't ever get turned off. Thinking, imagining, remembering, planning, offering images, words. And then this heart feels all the many, many emotions we can experience, mind states. And so checking in this moment, how is it in the chitta right now? What's the mind state? It could be some kind of irritation, wanting, it could be worry. The mind could feel quite dull. There could be calm and curiosity. It could be equanimity, relaxation. And whatever's here right now is just the mind reacting to all the different causes and conditions arising in this moment. So whatever's happening in this heart and mind belongs, just a natural arising. Is it possible to appreciate this heart and mind that can love, create, care, imagine, connect, understand? Of course, this mind can drive us crazy, frustrate us. And it's also this mind that frees us from all of that. So just from now on, during the rest of the practice, just becoming aware of whatever sense is most obvious. Just leaning back and receiving this tapestry of the moment, which is just this beautiful weaving of strands coming from all of these six senses. This moment is just woven up of these strands of hearing, seeing, feeling, all of it. Is the most obvious part of your experience to be aware of right now. the most beautiful or I think helpful places to cultivate a moment of gratitude is the moment when the mind is returning from wandering off here or there. And that moment when, oh, awareness comes back, notices, oh, there was thinking going on. This can be a moment where we really beat ourselves up, get really frustrated. Thinking again. Or we can really appreciate that awareness just returned all on its own. And when we can cultivate appreciation during that moment, that is cultivating more moments of appreciation to arise the next time the mind wanders and awareness returns. So this moment is such an important moment. This is the moment to invite in what's beautiful, helpful, and recognizing and greeting awareness with open arms cultivates awareness returning more and more often. Really being there, aware of that moment. Mm. Yeah. Sprinkle in a little appreciation. can also become aware of how we're meditating. What lens are we looking through right now? The lens of aversion, not wanting what's here, or wanting a particular experience, allowing, appreciating, and no need to judge whatever's here, just seeing clearly how the mind is practicing right now. And to take the last part of this practice to cultivate a little metta, a little love, a little kindness. But maybe there's a moment here to just be simply bringing the hand to the heart. If that feels good, authentic. And also imagine doing it. And just checking in with the part of you that's needing a little extra care, warmth, sweetness right now. Maybe there's a vulnerable or tender part, not needing to dig around with a story of why you're feeling so vulnerable and tender, but just knowing, oh yeah, this part. And just meeting this heart with sweetness, with warmth, with all that you've been holding. Just taking this moment to care. And then sensing into how we're together right now in this Sangha. Just radiating care, compassion, tenderness into this shared experience right now. And then calling into the mind and the heart, perhaps a being or a group of beings who you'd really like to share your love with tonight. You could imagine that your being here doing this practice could somehow really benefit another being or beings. Who would you really want to share this care, this metta with tonight? And it's said that metta is boundless. So for this last minute, just imagining that in some mysterious, magical way, our metta could reach all the beings on this earth, omitting none. Caring and loving this world together. So we move around and wiggle for 5 minutes, go to the bathroom. 5 minute break. Is that okay for you at home? Just a little move around, wiggle, get a drink, go to the bathroom, come
Just
back.
a little short stand-up break.
At 26?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. 26 past that hour.
And for those of you
Getting used to this and this. I usually do one or the other, not at the same time. So here we go. Let's get used to it together. You're allowed to make noise. You can, yeah, you're allowed to unscrew your cap. Okay. So to talk about inviting in what's beautiful, inviting in what's wholesome, or how about just what's helpful? Like, yeah. And I was sharing, well, yeah, I'll just get into it. So a couple recently, maybe a couple weeks ago now, I was sitting with a friend and we were having this conversation about how um, like how rare it is to meet someone who feels very awake, and just like the rarity of that, like, and when being with a person like that, how magnetic it feels, so just like wanting to be there. And this all came about because we were just pulling oracle cards and there was a wolf that had two different color eyes. And we were just like, ooh, rare, rare. Anyway, then we're talking about it. Just, yeah, we just were having this really fun conversation. It wasn't really a Dharma conversation, but we were just talking about things that were rare. And I was preparing this talk. I also gave this talk at Portland Insight a couple weeks ago. And I was saying, I've been looking at some suttas where the Buddha talks a lot about things that are rare in the world, actually. And I was telling her about this one sutta because I was really interested in where in the suttas, in the Pali Canon, the Buddha actually talks about gratitude. And turns out it shows up a lot, actually. It isn't on the like usual lists of the 7 factors of awakening or things like that, but it's woven in there. And so I will speak to a little bit about that in the talk. But so anyway, there's this one sutta where the Buddha is talking to a group. I guess they're called the Lichavis. I don't know, some group somewhere in India, and it was 500 men. And I think they're really wealthy, successful men who are lay practitioners. And they were talking to each other, and the Buddha was around, and they were saying, these are the 5 rare things in the world: to have an elephant, to have, right? Really, no, you go. So what would the elephant be in our time? Like, yeah, our what? Car, private jet. Yeah, I think just car, maybe private jet. Um, to have a house, to have horses, to have a steward of the land, and a partner. And the Buddha said, these are the 5 rare things in the world. And he said, fully awakened beings, to have beings that are alive who are fully awakened. This is a rare thing. To have people who are teaching the Dharma, to have Dharma teachers around is a rare thing. You have those who are really wanting to understand the Dharma is a rare thing in the world. And then to have people who not just want to understand the Dharma, but also want to practice the Dharma, like not just read books about the Dharma, but actually plunk down and practice. Get into the laboratory of the mind and look at what's happening. And then the last on this list is those who are grateful and thankful. Oh no, that just touched me so, so much that those are the five rare beings in the world, the Buddha. So anyway, when we were having this conversation with my friend, when I said this list to her and said the last one of the people who are grateful and thankful at being rare in the world, she got really teary. And I said, what's happening? She said, is that true? That was really just sort of upsetting to her. Is that true? That it's really rare to have people who are grateful and thankful in the world. I mean, here in Portland, in our little communities, it can seem like it's not that rare. I mean, we look around in this room or, in our Zoom room, like probably we're in good company here. But yeah, when you think about the world right now, right, how much harm is being caused out of greed for all different kinds of things, power, all of it, resources, aversion, delusion. Yeah, people who are grateful and thankful, rare in the world. And what I find just so humbling for myself is that I can really know on such a deep level how many blessings I have, you know, just, the basic blessings, all of the food, clothes, family, shelter, those blessings, but like I have the Dharma in my life, that I can receive these teachings and practice them. I can sink into such deep blessing and feeling of gratitude around it. And then I can completely forget. I can be like so far from gratitude, a lot, probably like most of the day. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but am I the only one? No, right? It's just like any challenging mind state that arises really can just block me from remembering that I'm alive. I'm going to get sick. I'm not going to keep aging, and we know where that heads, that I will be injured, that I will die, and that I will lose everything that I love. These are the 5 remembrances. So easy to forget these. So easy to forget that my life, your life, is completely 100% dependent on trillion, million, billions of other living beings. So easy to forget in any given moment. Oh, I have the refuges of the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. I have a Sangha. So easy to forget. So, yeah, I think a lot of this, or maybe all of this path practice is forgetting, remembering, forgetting to be aware, remembering to be aware, forgetting blessings, remembering blessings. And I remember just a Mother's Day, so that wasn't too long ago. Woke up. We were having a really hard time with our kid. Something happened that was really, really challenging. And on Mother's Day, it's okay. I know. By the way, no, it's all good. But it was a really, really intense, like the most intense week yet, parenting, in some ways, of this stage, of the older child stage. Um, it was forward edge of practice kind of stuff that I wasn't expecting at this age. I wasn't ready for, and yet there it was. And so Mother's Day, I don't know, I was not feeling it so much. Um, so I really was in a funk on Mother's Day, and I sort of watched like for the morning part of the day. Um, they were gonna leave. My husband and kid were gonna leave and let me have the day, which is what I really wanted. I wanted to go for a hike. I wanted to do yoga. That's what I wanted for Mother's Day. So they were all set doing all of their things, so I could do that, but I just couldn't do it, any of it. It was just kind of like I would like get up and eat. I even like was on the yoga mat and I was just like, nope, not feeling it. So I'm like, oh, what I need is rest. I'll just rest. Am I the only one who's had days like this? No, right. Um, and so, okay, I'll go rest. Maybe rest is what I need. And hearing this little voice every once in a while come in and say, go go outside, get out of here. It's not working. Really, it was just saying, go outside. But it was like being in a funk. I couldn't do the thing. I couldn't. What was really happening was aversion was in the mind, and it was much stronger than the mindfulness and the voice of wisdom. But then wisdom would get strong, mindfulness would get strong in a moment and see what was happening and say, go outside. And aversion would, it was just this, it was just bigger than until finally it wasn't. This was hours, y'all, like 2 hours for wisdom to finally get enough strength and mindfulness to see this is not how you want to spend this day. So finally, the voice of wisdom put on the shoes and drove to Mount Talbert. Have any of you been to Mount Talbert? Do you love it? Yeah. I don't know how many of you on Zoom or here, Portland, but Mount Talbert is over in Clackamas, and it is just this little gem of a forest that feels very private, and it's just a very sacred place to me. So I went there, and one of my favorite things, just one of my favorite things to do in life is put Dharma talks in my earbuds and just walk in the forest. I feel like Dharma inside my head, Dharma everywhere around me in the forest, and it's just like my greatest joy. And what was so interesting for me that day was literally the moment I stepped into the forest, the funk just was like I had set into motion the causes and conditions for gratitude to arise, for awareness to become strong. Um, and what was interesting, and then also I had this voice of Joseph Goldstein in my ears, and I had no idea. I really don't even know what the talk was about. Um, I think it was kind of an intense talk. I wasn't really following it very much, even though he's very clear. But it didn't matter. It was like the voice of Joseph, the voice of the Dharma, being surrounded by the Dharma. It was like immediately I felt the blessings of my life, of the Dharma, the Buddha, the Sangha. And then, like, what was so interesting was the mind got so clear and was like really curious and investigated the whole day. And what I could see as I was walking was really actually what happened when I woke up was that I was bloated. And I had one moment of feeling unpleasant sensation in my physical body. And it just put aversion on. And then everywhere I looked was just aversion. The husband was doing the wrong thing, the kid, everything was bad. And it really, when I tracked the whole thing, it was just one unpleasant physical sensation that just, I was gone. The aversion was so strong. And when I saw that, it brought me so much joy, like the joy of just, oh, understanding. Oh, now I understand. And I just walked that forest. My heart exploded in gratitude for the Dharma. And what was really interesting was when I got home, all I wanted to do was shower my husband and kid with thankfulness. Like it was really just an authentic outpouring of like, I wanted to make them food. I wanted to um, give my husband a head rub, which is like, all he needs in life is just like a head rub to be happy. He's like a little dog, really. All he needs is just, and it was just genuine, authentic. I wanted to express my thankfulness. And so when I was first like looking at these suttas, the Buddha uses gratefulness and thankfulness together over and over again. I'm like, what's the difference? Thinking about it, like gratefulness, gratitude is kind of an attitude in the mind, like experiencing the blessing, and then thankfulness is this movement to express it. And so just to spend like a little more time, just a little bit of time sharing a few more of these little places in the Buddha's words where he talked about gratefulness and thankfulness. And he's not really talking about how to cultivate it. I'll share about that in the last part of the talk, but just to get our buy-in, like the importance of gratitude, thankfulness from the Buddha. And so, in Buddhism, we have these three, I guess, three areas of practice called dana, sila, bhavana, right? You've heard this. Dana is the path of generosity. Sila is our ethical practice, how we're relating to others in the world. And then bhavana is the mind development piece. And so I will just say, in the Buddha does talk about gratefulness and thankfulness in the realms of each of these parts of practice. A little bit indirectly in the dana expression, but I'll just read this little part from the Dana Sutta, dana being generosity. And the Buddha says, in this world, there are three things of value for one who gives. What are these things? Before giving, the mind of the giver is happy. And this is where I would say feeling grateful, right? Feeling thankful. While giving, the mind of the giver is made peaceful. After having given, the mind of the giver is uplifted. He's not specifically in that sutta talking about gratitude, but it's like where, right? I think it's where generosity really stems from. And so this I found just really helpful to reflect on this next one. And this is from a sutta called the Katanu Sutta. And this is about sila, ethical conduct. And in this little quote here from the sutta, he uses, well, I'll just read it and then I'll say a bit more about it in a moment. He says, a person of no integrity is ungrateful and unthankful. This ingratitude, this lack of thankfulness is advocated by rude people. A person of integrity is grateful and thankful. This gratitude, this thankfulness is advocated by civil people. There's also a translation where the Buddha, instead of using the word like a people of integrity or people of no integrity, he says true people and untrue people. So the untrue people are ungrateful and unthankful. The true people are grateful and thankful. I was just thinking about, that word true. It's like, what is true? What is true is that life is sacred. That feels true to me, in my way of looking, or in the Buddhist sensibility. All beings are sacred because they're of this earth, because all of our life is dependent on one another. That's true. I mean, that is true. Try to debate it. How could we possibly eat or do anything without other beings? All, not just human beings, but all, how many beings we have living in our gut. What's the number? Who knows that? So many countless living beings. So untrue people just not knowing that. And when we're not thinking about how deeply interdependent, how we need each other, it's just yeah, where there's no gratitude, there's no thankfulness, and then it's easy to take, to hurt, to harm. And it's like when we do have that perception that life is sacred or that beings are sacred, of course we want to protect them. Of course we want to protect them. And just maybe it sounds, a little cheesy, Pollyanna, but just, kind of thinking about all of the oppression, the greed, the violence right now. I mean, what if there was reverence for life right now? What if it, it's just what if there was that gratitude for life? It would be so different. So this gratitude, this reverence, this is part of our ethical commitment if we've taken that up to be beings of non-harming. Isn't that interesting to hear that from the Buddha, that beings who are not harming are rooted in gratitude and thankfulness? So it's not just about being happy. It's about being beings who are not harming, protecting other beings. And so this is the last little part of the Buddha's words here. And this is about the bhavana, the mind development, which it means cultivating insight, cultivating the Brahma Viharas, the beautiful heart practices, samadhi, concentration, and the different levels of samadhi and concentration. So the Maccariya Sutta, the Buddha says, monks, which is all of us too, who are practicing. Monks, there are 5 forms of stinginess. Don't you love that word is stinginess? That surprised me. Which 5? Stinginess as to one's lodgings, stinginess as to one's family and community, stinginess as to one's gains, stinginess as to one's status, and stinginess of the Dharma. And in that part of the sutta, it also says, and stinginess of the Dharma is the most harmful of all of those 5 stinginesses. So if you ever think, should I teach? Do I have something to share? What I think is really interesting is later in that sutta, because it repeats, the stinginess of the Dharma is swapped out for the word ingratitude. And what he's saying as this goes on, he says, without abandoning these 5 qualities, one is incapable of entering the jhanas. So the jhanas are these like some of you know about them. They're these just different states of samadhi, different states of concentration. But then this is a very repetitive sutta. It goes on, all these forms of stinginess. And then without letting go of ingratitude, it says that all of these 4, 5, and then ingratitude, one cannot enter stream entry, which is the first stage of awakening, where you're guaranteed to wake up in 7 lifetimes. But then on, without letting go of ingratitude and all of these other forms of stinginess, you cannot enter into any of the other 3 stages of awakening. So basically what he's saying is, if you don't let go of these 5 stinginesses, one of which is ingratitude, you cannot awaken. So it's clutch for our awakening. So it's not just this like Oprah, write your 5 things you're grateful for at the end of the day, to be a little bit happier. Although it does work like that. Many people have gratitude buddies and write those things down, and it does gladden the mind. But it's actually just without letting go of ingratitude, we will not awaken. I loved reading that. And it made me think of times when I've been practicing, not just on retreat, but all the time, like just different times practicing. And I'm sure you've had this experience too, where times where you're coming to your practice out of trying to fix yourself or to make some particular experience happen, like concentration, but to get a particular experience because you want, a piece or want something, versus times when you come to practice like out of refuge. Like, this is a safe place for me right now in the silence, in the stillness. You have felt the difference? Yeah. I was thinking about, just in the last couple of years, there are times when I've really gone on retreat and just so dang grateful to not be cooking dinner, like so grateful just to be on the land away from all of the householder duties, and just how just so many beautiful states open when I just would plop down, like, just happy to be here, you know? And it was just really, really telling. Yeah, the mind really responds to just being happy to be here, practicing. And so, something that I think is really interesting, and I wonder if you have found this too in along the way in your own practice, is that when we talk about mindfulness, I feel like we hear a lot about being with experience. Like, we're practicing to be with what's here, right? Like, we would not argue that probably. Yeah, I'm doing this to be with what's here. And we have this teaching in Buddhism of the four wise efforts, and I'm not going to go into all four of them right now, but basically it's two ways of practicing, just practicing. And the first two have to do with being with what's challenging, being with what's unwholesome. And the second two of these wise efforts have to do with cultivating what's beautiful when it is not there, and then letting it grow when it is there. I have found in my journey of practice that the being with to let go of the unwholesome or challenging mind states gets way more airtime. Have you noticed that? That, like, oh, the Brahma Viharas or the cultivating the wholesome, that's like, we'll do that for 30 minutes at the end of the day on a retreat, you know? And really, the four wise efforts are about being with and cultivating, and they go together equally. We need both. We can't practice one without the other. And I think because of negativity bias, this one gets more emphasis. I think of different, in the Theravadan tradition anyway, there are different teachers that definitely more emphasize the being with to let go, this idea of bare attention, letting go, being with. And some teachers have, the idea that when we do really allow what's challenging, which is what lets go, when we actually allow it, when we're not pushing it away or feeding it, then the beautiful or wholesome states arise all on their own. You don't even have to do anything. And I think that's true. I think that's true. Um, and I think that we're missing something too if we're not actively cultivating the beautiful when they're not there. And because I know it's not just me, but this is what I've seen in my mind. So I know it's true for other people too, because that's usually how it works, is that we can be so, or I can, I can be so allowing one moment. Like, like with this funk, there was a time when I was like, oh, I'm going to allow, this is how it is. I'm not going to try to get rid of it. I'm going to try to feed it, just be, it's okay that this is how it is on Mother's Day. I'm not judging it, you know, in 1 minute or just a moment of like, resentment. Okay, I'm allowing this. It's not my fault that this is here. It's arising. I don't need to make it go away. I don't need to feed it. But what's tricky is the mind is tricky. In one moment of allowing can just the next moment be a wallow. And I like using those together because they have the same letters, allow and wallow. And for me, that's what happens. I can really be allowing, and then one moment I'm not aware, and boom, there I am feeding. The wallowing is feeding or believing it shouldn't be here, which is pushing away, which are the push and pull we do, which is how we cling to mind states. And so this, for me, this intentionally, okay, yes, I'm allowing, holding this in one hand. What's here is challenging. It's unpleasant. What else is here? What else, or what else is true? What else is true? And I know, like, even thinking about the world right now, I don't know about you, but it is really easy to let the mind just completely shrink around what is challenging and forget about all the beauty, forget about all the people who are working to help, forget about the blessings. And so not to live with the head in the sand where we're not, where we're not opening to the suffering, but yes, this and this, be doing both. And so this path of cultivating for me, I started when I came in here, I said I was a gratitude skeptic, which is really funny because James, my teacher, who you also know, Candle, James Bears, he wrote this book. I've worked, he's been my teacher for 20 years, and he wrote this book, Awakening Joy. And it's just all about gratitude and all about cultivate. It's all about the four wise efforts. And he wrote this book coming out of his practice of master teachers who were taking being on that side of letting go and just shutting down the senses, and it's all craving, and just, he got so serious, he completely lost his joy and almost stopped practicing altogether. And then met a teacher in India. I think, who was it? Kunjaji, who was just like a very happy teacher, and he found his joy again. And he wrote this book about the four wise efforts. But somehow, even with James as my teacher, I never got it. And I just always thought it was a cheesy practice, gratitude. Okay. Until one day, not one day, this was like an unfolding at some point in my practice. I was really seeing that I was just resenting every single thing I did. Like the dishes, the putting my kid to bed, the going to work, all of it, the teaching the Dharma, everything, and just this feeling of like, I have to do all of these things, which this is one of the three major forms of dukkha. It's called sankhara dukkha. It's the dukkha that arises out of all of the things we have to do to keep this ship going, So it is an experience that many of us feel. I have to brush my teeth. I have to make dinner. I have to do the laundry. Just resistance. But for me, when this finally became clear, I was just like, wow, really just, I really wanted to be married. Like that was something that I really manifested, finding a partner. And here I am just like, I don't do the dishes, just like resenting him, not letting in the good, not seeing the beauty. And I really wanted to be a mom. That was my life dream. And here I am resenting having to make dinner for this kid, resenting having to do bedtime tonight. And I really wanted my life to center around Dharma. But every time I was teaching, I was like, oh, like, and I was like, I can't live, I don't want to live like this. That's crazy. I put so much effort and so much heart into all of these things in my life, and I'm resenting all of them. And this is when I made a resolve to practice gratitude. Like, I don't want to live like this. And it was like radical gratitude became my word. And I remember talking to my teacher about it. I'm like, it's about gratitude. And he's like, where have you been? Like, I don't know. I know you've been saying it, but somehow the gratitude list wasn't it. The 5 things you're grateful for, that wasn't the doorway in for me. The doorway in for me was actually reflecting on my own death and the death of my child, or the separation, the inevitable separation. So for me, I had to come through it in a little bit of a different way from the 5 remembrances. And somehow that just woke me up. Like, whoa, 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 whoa. I want to be here for it. All of this. I really want to be here for all of this. Present, appreciating, not in a toxic way, not denying the moments when, I was, when there were other things there. But and so on this journey, when I started this journey of radical gratitude, I started to become curious about why it felt like it, why it really felt like gratitude practice never really worked for me. And besides just like that, I needed to find different doorway ins. There were other things that were going on that were really helpful for me to see in my own mind. And the first one was that I saw that I had to believe that gratitude was only real if it arose on its own. And I think that was somehow my interpretation of my misinterpretation of the 4 wise efforts. I kind of missed that inviting in something, because so much of what I heard over and over was being with what's here. And so I thought, if what's here is not a spontaneous feeling of gratitude, then it's not authentic. So that was just a misunderstanding. It was just a misunderstanding of the teachings. And then I saw 2 other dynamics going on. And one was, if I was inviting in gratitude when something was challenging, and I was inviting it in because I didn't want to feel what was challenging, in essence, using gratitude to push away what was here, then it wouldn't work, because it wasn't allowing what was truly here first. So it was ultimately just using it to push away, which is like cultivating aversion. And I'll share an example of this so it can make more sense. When I first started teaching, I was like next level scared, like almost not going to walk in the room scared, like this, like painfully afraid. Like, I don't want to do this. I really don't want to do this. So there is so much nervousness, right, in the body and the heart. And I would try to sit there before going into the hall and be like, it's such a blessing, and the Buddha and the Dharma, and you get to teach. And it would not help. That did not help, because what I was feeling was fear, right? And the only thing that would help was, this is fear. It's okay that you're afraid right now. Like, yeah, this is uncomfortable. You want it to go away. It had to be allowed to be there. It had to, because that's what was there, it had, and the allowing of it to be there was what loosened the feeding of it, or the pushing away of it, which then would naturally, like by the time I was in there, oh yeah, right, this is a blessing. But it just didn't work. Like, and I noticed in my marriage, you know, my husband has a tendency to do that. Oh, we're so blessed and everything's good, right? And it's like, really? Are we really? Like, everything's good all the time? Like, come on, I think we have different personalities around this. Because so this is the other tendency, and this is kind of more my person. It's more this next one for me than the using gratitude to push away. Although I think we tend to land in one or two of these camps, although we both probably do both. For me, I saw that most of the time gratitude wasn't working. And I'll say this in the present tense: gratitude isn't working because I don't want it to. Because I will say, because aversion doesn't want it to. because aversion is clinging to whatever it's whatever it's aversive to. It's clinging to the funk. It's clinging to the resentment. I don't want to be grateful right now. I want to feel this resentment. I want to, and so it's feeding it with how could they and why did they and what if, like, or I don't want to think about gratitude when there's anxiety. I just want to think, what if this happens and what if that happens and what if, so it's not me who's choosing to not invite gratitude. It's the aversion arising in the mind. This is my personality. This is what I see for myself, that it just doesn't work unless I want it to work, and so this for me is more where I work with resolve around cultivating gratitude. And so for me in my life, in my practice, I've worked with a resolve, which is a wholesome desire, which is leading to goodness. And my resolve is I want to cultivate radical gratitude. And the word radical is helpful for me because it is radical for this mind. Maybe you are someone who is so naturally grateful and thankful. There are those people who would just be like, exude that. And I'm like, wow, their cruising altitude is awesome. I love it. For me, it takes work. And so I have this like 3-step process I think about when working with resolve. And it's like the first is to touch that wholesome desire. Like, I do want this. And we can have resolves about anything, right? Waking up in the morning, having a heart of non-judgment, we can have resolve for anything. But for me, the resolve to be grateful. 1, touching the desire that I want that. 2, being ready for the opposing forces that are coming to knock me off of that desire. And then 3, having a game plan for when those opposing forces arise. And so I think it's just for me, it's been a really helpful thing with different resolves. Getting really clear on what those opposing forces are. Because you could say like, oh, the hindrances are the opposing forces for any wholesome quality of mind. Sure. Yeah, the hindrances are what knock us off our seat. But what do they look like for each one of us, in different situations? So just as an example, I was thinking about, all right, the opposing forces for me just lately, if I just think of like lately, what's life like? What are the things that try to knock me off this wholesome desire for gratitude? 1 is just being tired. That's a big one for me. Just full-time working mom, I'm just tired a lot. And when tiredness comes, it's just so hard to feel grateful. It's just so easy to slip into the I have to's, is that feeling of depletion. Another one, I've said this word a lot, but for me these days, resentment of household tasks. Like, there's a lot of household tasks that go on. And when resentment arises, it can start just spinning out with stories and stories and stories. And so I'm ready now. And for me, the kitchen sink has become like my new altar of practice, because every time I come there, resentment arises. Whether it's my turn to do dishes or not, it's still, my mind has now conditioned to be feeling resentful standing there. And so I now know it's an opposing force. It's trying to shake me off my clarity, my love. So that's a huge place of practice. It's almost like, yeah, really, it's like almost a meditation cushion, because I come to the sink and I have to pause. I have to say, oh, here it is again. And how do I want to go down this road? I want to think about all the reasons my husband and child are horrible people, or do I want to, not on this, be there for the dishes and appreciate it, or do I need to have a conversation with said husband and child? Like, it's not feeling even right now. Another one for me is just like the daily waking up with anxiety. is the world going to collapse today? Is today the day, you know? I already talked about it, but this can definitely block my feeling of gratitude. Another, I'm just naming 5 of my, how these hindrances show up for me around blocking my own gratitude. And I'm just using my experience as an example. One of the big ones for me is wanting to be perfect. And then because I want to be perfect. And the other side of wanting to be perfect is never being good enough. And so for me, this has been a huge part of my story, mostly around body image for most of my life, but it's worked its way into every possible corner of ways to be perfect and good enough. And because I do that for myself, I layer that on for everyone else. So like everyone else should be perfect, and also life should be perfect, and also the world should be perfect. And it's a high bar, it's so painful. And when I'm in that mind state, there is no gratitude, right? It's all just bad and wrong and not good enough. It's like the exact opposite, right, of gratitude. And so this is a mindfulness spell for me when I'm in the cycle of, why am I not good enough? Why aren't they good enough? Why is life not good enough? And then just feeling kind of doubtful and hopeless. Do we really awaken? All that's happening in the world, is it really shifting our consciousness? It can get pretty dark, right? And so that, that for me comes every time I read the news. So reading the news is a mindfulness spell for me. Like, do I have the inner resources to do this right now? Or is this going to pull me under completely? And so then being able to name them, that's the second part that this 3-part process. I want it. I want gratitude. These are the things that are going to block it. So now what's the game plan? And in some of those, I gave examples of kind of what some of the game plans are. Like with tiredness, just with all of them, the first part of the game plan is just to allow it. It's okay. It's okay that these opposing forces are arising, because that's what they're going to do. Our minds are conditioned to be aversive, to want things, to have fear, based on what's happening in the world. These are natural tendencies of the mind. These hindrances, of course, they're going to arise. That's what I love about Buddhism, is that they have a name. The hindrances. I love this teacher, U Tejaniya, calls the mind nature. Anything that can arise in this mind is nature. So nothing wrong happening here. And we're trying to cultivate awareness so that we can see what they're up to, so that they're not running the show. So allowing, not trying to get rid of, but also not feeding it is the game plan. But again, there's sometimes something else needed. So sometimes that's it. That's enough. It's enough to just allow it. And it releases, on its own, naturally beautiful states arise. And sometimes this heart mind needs something more, right? And so then I love this question: what do I need right now? Tiredness, often it's like, I either need to rest or the opposite, get moving, With resentment, in addition to allowing, I usually need to ask the question, is there a conversation about balance that needs to happen with the people in my household? Or do I need to start remembering all the good things they do? And maybe it's both. Maybe it's both. With anxiety, the more I can be curious about all the things I'm afraid of. What would happen if I lose my job? I wonder what would happen if I lose my job. Or I wonder what would happen, even with the world right now. I wonder what will happen. When I'm more curious, it's helpful, Also, yeah, when I spin out what is going to become of my 12-year-old boy, I can really be spinning out what is going to happen when he has his own cell phone. How will I do social? All of these things, all of these little things that give rise to anxiety. If I can become curious with just, yeah, what will happen? I wonder what will happen. What kind of conversations will we have when he gets a cell phone? what will we do? Just kind of asking those questions more from curiosity, I think really is a support for working with anxiety. And just a side note, there's a really cool book out right now. What is it called? I'm not remembering the name, but I learned about it from Elizabeth Gilbert. You all know who Elizabeth Gilbert is? Really? She wrote Eat, Pray, Love. And I did this really cool workshop with her and Suleika Jawad. Do you know Suleika Jawad? Oh, okay. She wrote Beyond Two Kingdoms, which is her story about surviving cancer as a young person. She's married to John Baptiste, really cool musician. She is forever having cancer. She's young. She had a second. Anyway, she just wrote this really cool book called The Book of Alchemy, which is all of these essays from really cool people and writing prompts. So if any of you like doing writing inquiry, it's a great book, The Art of Alchemy. Anyway, these two powerhouses did this workshop. And Elizabeth Gilbert was talking about this new book from this neuroscience whose name I'm forgetting right now. I'll remember it at some point. Who was saying that when they studied the brain, the opposite of anxiety is not calm, like the centers that are lighting up, is not calm, but curiosity and creativity. Yeah. So I thought I should buy that book. I did buy that book. I haven't read it yet. I wish I could remember the name of it. Martha Beck. Martha Beck. Just, yeah. I mean, how many of you have a creative practice that feels like a refuge? Some kind of creative practice. Yeah. And so, with the bigger dukkha, the life, the sorrows, the dukkha dukkha, one of my, what do I need right now? One of the resources I come to is actually, one, still, of course, the allowing, but is playing around with how I'm perceiving the situation. And so I ask two questions with the big stuff. And just to say, these questions might not land well for you. And they don't work with every situation, but they are questions I really authentically use and do help me. And the first is there anything sacred about this? Or meaningful, sacred or meaningful? And again, that does not work with every situation. But I was, there was a time a couple of years ago where my dad was hospitalized and, just for his own confidentiality, I won't share, but it was a really, really hard situation where we couldn't talk to him at all and didn't really know what was happening. And it was really scary. But I just somehow kept asking myself, is there anything sacred about this? I don't know why I kept asking myself that, but that was what I have worked with that question before, but it kept arising. And what kept, what arose out of asking that question was my love for him is what's sacred. And it was something I could do in the uncertainty and the not knowing, was just fiercely love him and sit in just that fierce love of him. And it really helped. And then, it really helped. It was really powerful. He's okay, by the way. And the second question I use often, and this one seems to really help most of the time. Again, maybe not for every situation, maybe not for, more things that are more in the realm of tragedy, but how is this my curriculum? What is the curriculum in this? Sharing of that intense situation with our kid. And that was the question I kept coming back to. What's the curriculum? What's the curriculum here? What am I cultivating in the face of this? What am I learning? It's just such a helpful way to orient, because it's orienting towards awakening. It's orienting to looking for what beautiful things could be cultivated through this awful situation. And when I kept asking that, like, so many things revealed themselves. Oh, this is happening, so we're learning how to now communicate in this way. Oh, this is happening, so I can open my eyes to what's really happening for kids this age right now. Oh, this is happening. So my husband and I can figure our stuff out with how to communicate about kids. So many, the list went on and on and on about what was the curriculum and what beautiful things were arising because of it. And so that's the one. I get that from Ram Dass. That's Ram Dass's whole thing. Whatever's happening right now in your life, what's right in front of you is perfect. It is the stuff of your awakening. So it's not get rid of this and then I can practice, but no, this is the stuff. This is the stuff. And again, I do use this with sensitivity because it doesn't, it wouldn't feel right for all situations out there, but yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. We're at the end here, coming towards the end here. We just have a few more. And so what is cultivation? The path of cultivation is noticing when something's not there, letting ourselves want it, bringing forward the causes and conditions for it to arise, so inviting it in, and then being there for it when it's arisen. I love Tara Brach, who says, she uses this word, imprint it. Gratitude is here, don't miss it. Imprint it. We can miss it. We can miss a moment of generosity. We can not even know it's arising. We can miss a feeling of feeling okay. Just okay. We miss that all day long. There's okay. Okay is okay. And we miss it. So can we know, oh, there's okayness here. Oh, there's gratefulness, thankfulness here, and imprint it. Feel it in the body. Brooke Hansen says, breathe with it for, I don't know what he says, 15 breaths, but even 3, y'all. 3 breaths, that's imprinting. So let's just do a little reflection on this for a moment. You can feel into your own practice. So just for you, can you feel into this one quality or one situation in life that tends to block your feeling of gratefulness, thankfulness? What is it lately? What blocks it? What opposes it? And what might the game plan be the next time this block arises? How could you meet this quality of heart and mind? What does it need? And if you can touch or have a sense of how you might work with this block and how it might be able to invite in a wholesome or beautiful state. And can you imagine yourself imprinting that if it should arise in the moment? Breathing with it, being there for it. And wanted to close by reading the Buddha's words on reflections of blessing. And this is Shoshana Alexander's adaptation of the Buddha's Mangalam Sutta, which probably many of you have heard. And I thought to play a little background music just to see if that can help open the heart as we listen. So here we go. I'll try to put this music on so that you can hear it at home and here in space. Can you hear this music on Zoom? How about here in space? Can you hear? To spend time in the company of wise people and to honor those who are worthy. To live in a place that is good for you. To do good deeds and to keep yourself going in the right direction. To be well educated. To develop your skills. To train yourself in discipline. And to use words carefully and beautifully. To take good care of your mother and father if appropriate. To cherish your partner and children. And to engage in a livelihood that is harmless. To give generously to others. To live with integrity. To care for everyone you consider your family. To avoid doing harm and develop wholesome states of mind. To be respectful, humble, content, and grateful. And to regularly bring spiritual teachings into life. To be patient, open to learning. To be in touch with people on a spiritual path. And to discuss spiritual teachings. To live simply and in a holy way. To understand the deepest truth. And to realize the highest freedom and happiness. Have a mind that is steady, unswayed by the ups and downs of life, free of sorrow and shame, and at peace. Let's just have a moment to imprint if any blessings arose for you, just to breathe here in the space. 3 breaths. and deep gratitude to all of you. Thank you for having me.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much. So appreciate your taking your time out. And it was a beautiful. Thank everyone for coming. And to just mention that we have this interdependence of mutual support, that the teachings have survived, and we feel honored as teachers to carry the torch and the flame of the heart of the teachings, and grateful for your joy in giving, and grateful for ours in receiving, and that we have a little box back there for cash and some QR codes if you feel like giving today. And I'll put some connections in the chat as well. It's just so wonderful to spend this time together. And so it's with great gratitude. If anybody, we can stay, a little bit longer to give some reflection about how you felt from Alexa's talk. If there's anything you feel like sharing, I know we're at our time right now, but if you want to stay online or stay right now just to share a little bit, that's always appreciated. But I'll stop the recording now.